Hey everyone. So this video won't be anything fancy. Won't be any editing or anything like that. It'll just be me. Um, so I woke up this morning and I do what I usually do when I wake up. Just check, you know, check the usual, check social media, things like that. Didn't even get out of bed. I saw a tweet from a friend of mine. It was actually a retweet, I think. It said something like John McAfee death or something. And I go, what? Okay, like I knew he was in prison and stuff, but I was like, okay. So I checked my usual news sites, and sure enough, the headlines were John McAfee dead from suicide. And my first thoughts are just like, nah, no, he didn't commit suicide. You know, but because once he when he went into prison, he just a few days after he went into prison, he said, I'm happy here. I'm content. The food is good. People are nice. And if anything happens to me where I hang myself a la Epstein, then it's no fault of my own. And he, had joked about, the Epstein stuff for years. Well, for years, for a while since Epstein, supposedly, killed himself, right? Um, One of McAfee's favorite, famous things to do for that is to say, he knows Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. Maybe he wasn't murdered. Maybe he's still alive, but he didn't kill himself. That's an important point right there, too. So, if you don't know from watching this, why am I talking about John McAfee? So, a couple of years ago, I reached out to John's wife Janice about him being on my podcast. And normally I don't talk, normally my guests are people who live in Japan or people who are expats, or, whatever, who do interesting things, right? Usually people like John aren't the type of guest that I would have on. But I was always sort of a fan of John McAfee. And I say fan, but I'll explain later. I respect the guy. So I reached out to his wife, and she's like, "Sure. Are you okay with this time and this method?" And I said, "Yeah." And I had a one-on-one conversation with John about 30 40 minutes, 40 minutes long, and it's on this channel. You can find it here on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify. You can find it, wherever, right? And he agreed to speak with me. We met up. We, you know, me being a little bit, I wouldn't say starstruck, but someone like him who's lived the life that he's lived, and then me, like if you watch the conversation, it starts off a little bit awkward, just because we're just kind of trying to get a feel for one another. You know what I mean? Like in terms of how we're going to interact in this situation, but we find our ground, and we end up having a really good conversation. You know. And he does his thing. He does his John McAfee thing. He discusses a lot of cool topics. I highly recommend you guys check this out. Um, for what he says, which he does most of the talking. So, um, I'm. This is why I'm making this video, because who I'm not really anyone, and he's done many interviews in his life, but he took his time to meet with me and to talk with me, and um, I feel um, I feel happy that he did that. I have that memory, to speak to someone like him. He's lived a interesting life. He created, you know, McAfee antivirus. He sold that, became a billionaire through all that. You know, had some interesting times in Central America. There's a whole story all about that. And in his later years, was hopping around, going into various prisons, escaping various prisons. That's another hint there. So that's the thing. He would go into these prisons and he would construct these elaborate schemes to escape. He would fake a stroke or whatever, and he would. I think it was 9 prisons he was able to escape from every time. From thinking of plans on the fly. He was able to do that. Just think about that too. Right? The Epstein thing and his record of escaping prisons, right? So in his later time, like after I even spoke with him, he was kind of secretive of where he was. But then I saw on like Instagram or Twitter or something that he posted a picture of him on a ski lift somewhere, and he said he's in Spain. And I thought right there, okay, he's geographically located now. And sure enough, took a while, but sure enough, a few months later he was arrested in Barcelona International Airport trying to go to Turkey, and he ended up in prison. All of his assets were seized by the U.S. government, and he was awaiting extradition to the U.S. Well, when it was announced that the U.S. would be extraditing him, within hours, he was gone. Now, the headlines say he killed himself. He hung himself in his cell. There's a few scenarios here that could be possible. Scenario 1, he did hang himself. He did commit suicide in prison. And there's a little bit of evidence to support that he may have done this. Some of his recent tweets. Let me find. Here we go. This is from May 28th of this year. Today, a man facing a difficult situation asked if I knew of painless ways to kill himself. Having little experience in such, I was not much help. The amazing thing is that the tone of the discussion was like discussing the weather. Prison is a strange environment. So he's casually talking about suicide with people. There's some that speculate that this tweet is him talking to himself, trying to justify and be comfortable with himself with suicide. Now, there's not a lot of people that believe this, that he committed suicide either, because of the Epstein stuff, right? So, scenario number 2 is John McAfee escaped, just like he did numerous times before. He concocted a plan. Once he found out he was being extradited to the U.S., he concocted a plan, and he escaped. And this time, it's different if he escaped, because before he kept being John McAfee, right? But this time, like he's 75, he has no more money to his name. He just has his wife. All of his friends seem to have abandoned him. At this point, if you're going to escape prison and live the rest of your life, you just live it anonymously, out of the limelight, and you ride off into the sunset and you just enjoy the rest of your days with everyone thinking you're gone. That could be scenario 2. And scenario 3, I think, would be he was Epstein. He was murdered. It's a possibility. I don't know. I don't know what the truth is. But one of these three scenarios is probably likely. Either A, he committed suicide and went out on his own terms. Two, he escaped and is living his life anonymously out there somewhere. Or three, he was murdered. And in any of those scenarios, the John McAfee that we all knew is gone. Either he's gone from this earth, or he is gone as John McAfee. He, as the man that was John McAfee is no longer here, right? So that's why I kind of wanted to make this, was to kind of say rest in peace to John as a human, or just as the figure of John McAfee. Rest in peace. And I hope he's found peace with wherever he's at, And I feel lucky to have had a conversation with the guy. So, yeah. If you want to check out the conversation I have with John, feel free to check out this channel, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. It's all there. Check it out. But yeah, rest in peace, John. Rest easy. You lived quite a crazy life, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more about that life here in the next few weeks, days, weeks, and months, So, anyway, rest easy and take care.